ever had the good fortune of meeting someone totally unexpectedly and you realize you have so much in common? Not so much by what you've done, but just something about the way you each see the world. It fits hand in glove.
I'm delighted this morning to be with Marilyn Murray Willison, former health and fitness editor for the LA Times, syndicated worldwide. You were syndicated with a column called Positively Aging. You've written 8 books. You've done celebrity interviews, beauty, fashion. What haven't you done?
Skiing. I never got to ski.
What's something that we should know about Marilyn?
Well, I guess one of the mysteries of my life is that I always felt that I was outrageously healthy. I had the good fortune to be adopted by an older couple, and I grew up kind of with the drumbeat message that I was in spectacular good health. And from the perspective of now, at this age, I realize that it was simply a matter of youth, that what my parents thought were spectacular advantages health-wise simply revolved around the fact that I was a child, I was a youngster.
Right.
So I grew up with this mindset that I was the healthiest person on the planet. And of course, my parents did not have good health, so I was always aware of that background. So for me, it was a great shock for somebody who thought of herself as outrageously athletic and active to come down with a chronic neurological illness that literally changed every aspect of my life.
So growing up, but also after UCLA as a college student, when you were on Fleet Street covering Fergie and Andrew and having all these crazy interviews, you had a healthy nutritional lifestyle and you were active physically?
Yeah, and I guess, for me, one of the mysteries was I never did drugs, I didn't smoke, I watched my cholesterol, I exercised regularly, and I look at other people, for example, let's say Mick Jagger.
Right.
And I see people using drugs and abusing their body, and yet they're running around and dancing and in perfect health. And I'm like, wait a minute, how is this possible that this happened to me? And I realized that, life throws you curveballs that you just don't expect.
Right. So you got this curveball, you were how old?
34, let's say.
34. And when you got it, did life change in one moment, or
no?
How did it go?
They refer to MS as slow stroke because you have the same repercussions as you would have from a stroke, but instead of happening immediately, it's a very gradual decline. They often say that wherever you are with MS, you'll never be that good again. And I found that particularly discouraging and depressing, the idea that nothing will ever get better. And I think that's part of my stubborn optimism was I just refused to believe that I couldn't do something that would make my life better. But with MS, that's they tell you wherever you are, it'll never be that good again.
Stubborn optimism. I love that you said that instead of Pollyanna, which has some negative feeling.
Yeah.
So when you got the diagnosis, what did the stubborn, optimistic Marilyn do with the information?
Well, I chose not to follow the standard course of treatment, which involved a lot of highly toxic chemicals, and all the quote authorities or knowledgeable people felt that you should follow what doctors and neurologists prescribed, And one of the blessings of my life was that I just refused to listen to them and listen to my own body instead. And because of that, I've more than doubled the lifespan that I was given.
So you're an outlier.
I'm an outlier. I'm an outlier.
In many ways, I think.
I'm a rule breaker.
Yeah, and a trailblazer.
Thank you.
So you get the diagnosis and you say to yourself, I'm not going to regular doctors.
Right.
You just tell yourself that, and
Right.
you start looking for alternative treatments.
Well, actually, at the beginning, I have to confess, I simply refused to believe it. I just could not believe that somebody as physically active and as knowledgeable about the body as I was, that this could happen to me. So I just couldn't believe it. So instead of researching and attacking it, I kind of just turned my back on it. And one of the challenges with MS is that every case is different. There are people who can still walk, but they can't speak, or there are people who go blind, but still have the use of their limbs. I mean, so it depends on where the lesions in the brain happen to land. So for that reason, it can be very difficult to diagnose. And back in the 80s, there were 5 hallmarks of MS, and I didn't have them. I didn't have high cholesterol. I didn't have double vision. I didn't have numbness. I mean, there just were a lot of things I didn't have. So I was able to kind of convince myself that it couldn't possibly be MS, because outwardly I looked healthy, and it just didn't seem possible.
And your whole life was about health and fitness.
Exactly. You hit the nail on the head. Exactly. My whole life.
Yeah.
About taking care of myself and being healthy. So it just didn't make sense. And so because of that, my case was definitely different. But I'm pleased with how everything turned out.
As often does, right? I always say you don't learn from your successes, you learn from your challenges.
That is absolutely correct. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, and people don't like to hear that, though.
No. They like the easy, or,
Right. Yeah, you're right.
Okay, so for a while you turned a blind eye.
Yep.
And you just continued life as
Yes.
it was.
Yep.
And then what happened that helped you accept this is my new normal?
Well, the gold standard for diagnosis for MS is a MRI. And so the MRI revealed that I had lesions in my brain. It's just like scar tissue. And the scar tissue prevents the message going from your brain to your muscles. So like I can say to my toe, move, but no matter what I do or what I think, it's not going to move. So that is what happens with the brain lesions. And with most cases of MS, the number of lesions increases or they spread. I'm very lucky in that I only have lesions in my brain. Many people have them in their spinal cord as well. So
which totally affects movement, I guess.
Totally affects movement.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, through the years, the only thing I can still move is I can move my left arm, which is wonderful because without it, it'd be like being in an iron lung.
Right.
And I think one of the biggest challenges with MS is just the frustration factor. And maybe if you're not a former type A person like me, maybe that wouldn't bother you, but for somebody like me, it can be very
So what
annoying.
are the frustrations? What are your biggest frustrations?
Well, over the years, one of the biggest frustrations I've found is that when your body doesn't work the way it should, people mistakenly believe that your brain doesn't work as well. And in my mind, my brain is working on all 12 cylinders all the time, but my body is not cooperating. And when people see that you are unable to do certain things, they tend to discount your I don't want to say worthiness, but your competency, so that one of the things I find extremely annoying is that when you're disabled, at least in my case, people never ask you what you want. They tell you what they think you need, and 90% of the time they're wrong. And if people would just say, what you need, what you want, and then do it, that would be wonderful. But you would be amazed at how often people will edit what I want or need with their version of what they think I want or need.
I always notice that people love to give unasked for advice.
That's
but
a good point, yeah.
People who can walk, we're lucky because I just walk away in a
Right.
polite way where they don't know I'm walking away.
Right.
In your case,
Can't do it.
you can't do it. So how do you handle when people are giving you words that you didn't ask for and are not fitting?
It's very difficult because frequently you're in a position of discomfort and you want them to do something and they feel that that's not what you really want or need, or so I used to, my late husband and I used to joke that the MS wouldn't kill me but the frustration would. Because you just get so frustrated that it's like it catapults you back to being like an out of control 4-year-old, where you're like, I want this
Right,
now,
right,
I want
right,
it now. Yeah,
right.
that type of
Okay,
thing.
so help all of us who are dealing with that frustration. What have you learned to say or do to try to get people to give you what you need?
Wow, what have I learned? I think I've learned to just try to. It's very difficult for people to put themselves in my shoes, and I have tried at times to say, imagine if you could only move your arm, your left arm, and you're a right-handed person. Imagine, how you would feel if you asked somebody for something and they would tell you that's not what you need or want. So you just have to realize that the limits of whatever little power you do have remaining. And fortunately with people like you giving me some of my power back,
Right.
is wonderful.
Right. The thing that comes to my mind is when I met you and you and I met in the most unusual way.
Yeah.
We just both happened to be at a lecture
Yeah.
and a luncheon, and I was late and there was a seat at your table and we became fast friends.
Yeah.
But I knew that there was something extraordinary about you, and it's really the way you emanate joy and kindness, because to be honest, if someone wasn't giving me what I needed, I would politely just tell them directly what I needed.
But people won't. You have no recourse. If I, for example, let's say that I would like to have a cup of coffee right now.
Right.
If somebody won't bring me that cup of coffee, there's nothing I can do about it.
That's true.
So you learn that you can either, that what do they say? You attract more bees with honey than
Yeah.
with vinegar. So you have to learn the hard way.
Yeah.
That you can't throw a temper tantrum. You
Right.
can't be impatient. You just have to find a way around. How do I get what I want when I want it?
And the other piece of that, and I'm coming at this from my spiritual direction self and my sense of spirituality, so this is just me, is to learn to just give it up and just
Which
let
kind
it
of
go.
they call let go and let God kind of a
Yeah,
thing.
I guess so. But I can imagine how annoying, go back to the cup of coffee. You ask for a cup of coffee and some annoying person says, "Oh, Marilyn, coffee's not good for you. The caffeine's not helpful." And
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And what do?
yeah,
And what's even more annoying is you are paying these people to take care of you or to help
Right.
you. Or,
Right.
for example, my latest books, I had to dictate every word to somebody else who's typing
Right.
and formatting the book.
right.
You really are profoundly dependent on other people. So
Yeah.
it's a kind of a game of people skills.
Right.
Right.
Right. And I can imagine if you're having somebody write your book and format and stuff, It could be annoying because maybe they're changing the words, or maybe they're putting their intention instead of your intention.
Right. You have to be very careful. Yeah.
Now, I have read your book, What the Honeybees Taught Me,
Uh-huh.
How 10,000 Stings Improved My Life.
Uh-huh.
Before we talk about the book, just for a second, because I'm
Okay.
sure there's people who don't know about bee venom therapy, you really got stung 50 times
Every week.
every week.
Every week.
And just give us a quick snapshot of what that does and how that works.
Well, the process is called apitherapy, and there is a national apitherapy organization. And the concept is applying bee venom where acupuncture needles would go. So it's like acupuncture on steroids, so that you're getting the benefit of acupuncture, but also the benefit of the bee venom, which stimulates the body's own immune system. So, I, for example, my favorite eye-opening moment when I first became aware of the apitherapy movement was, as many people with MS experience, I used to get UTIs all the time.
Yeah.
Very annoying, very damaging, and what's harmful is they, of course, give you antibiotics, which destroy the good biome in your digestion. So, I mean, it's a negative all the way around. Well, once I started getting the bee venom injections, I never had another UTI until I broke my shoulder and had to go to the hospital and could no longer get the bee stings, and the UTIs came flooding back. So that really struck me, that without any medication, without any AMA intervention, without any assistance, the UTIs just magically disappeared.
I've never heard of bee therapy until I met you. How did you go about finding it, and what was your journey in looking for a solution?
Well, a friend of a friend had seen a program. It might have been on 60 Minutes or some program like that, where a woman, I think in Maryland, had MS and had improved with the bee stings, and she was allowing people to come to her home, and she would give them the bee stings, and so they tried to find a way where I could get it here in Florida, and my husband and I couldn't find any place to get it done. But then years later, back in 2019, we finally found right in Boynton Beach, just nearby, an apitherapist. And so he would come every Thursday, and along with my dear friend Jeannie Hunter, to whom the book is dedicated, he would apply a live bee on different parts from my toes all the way to my head, and I began to feel better, and I no longer had UTIs.
Right.
Yeah, and so I stayed with it as long as I could.
So just going back to the moment where you had an MRI and it showed that you had the lesions in the brain, that gave you the information and the facts that you did in fact have MS.
Right.
From there, what did you do until you finally found someone who could give you the bee therapy? Because there was a span of time. Where did you go once you accepted your diagnosis?
I think I just began to try to learn as much as I could about MS, but I didn't take any of the medications.
A lot of times when you get a diagnosis, or someone in your family does, that starts to really occupy your mind, and you start to define yourself by your diagnosis.
Yeah.
What was happening inside of you?
Well, number one, the continued disbelief that this just can't possibly be happening, and trying to believe that somehow, some way, I'm going to get better. My late husband was also very optimistic, and he used to say, every day brings you that much closer to a solution. We don't know when it'll happen or how it'll happen or even if it will happen, but every day is a new opportunity that things could get better.
Yeah.
So,
And you have a mantra that we talked about before. Talk a little bit about your mantra.
oh, well, when I was in college, in a psychology class, I learned about Emile Coué, who was a French psychiatrist who became very popular treating patients. And no matter what their ailment was, whether it was alcoholism or depression or whatever the problem, everybody got the same prescription. And it was to say 20 times in a row, 3 times a day, every day in every way, my life is getting better and better. And his theory was that the brain can only really grasp one thought at a time. So if you flood your brain with that kind of positivity, it kind of pushes out the negativity or whatever is causing your problems. So he was very popular at the time. So, with the wisdom of a ridiculous 21-year-old college student, I thought, oh, okay, all I have to do is make up my mind of what I want. So I came up with the mantra of I am healthy, beautiful, loved, enlightened, happy, famous, rich, and thin. Because I thought that covered all the bases.
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
And you had it printed on a bookmark here.
Right. Yeah.
So
my memoir is about each one of those traits and how the memoir was written when I was 65, and it was a look at how my definition of those traits had changed dramatically through the years.
Oh.
That what I thought was beautiful when I was 21 had nothing to do with what I thought was beautiful at age 65.
Okay, so of these choices,
Uh-huh.
healthy, happy, beautiful, famous, loved, rich, thin.
Uh-huh.
I always say there's like one core that everything emanates around. Is there one here that is shining out at you as the most important?
I think loved, because love has carried me through. I've been very blessed with, I have a very small family, but I have an army of supported girlfriends, and that they've really been there for me through all of the ups and downs of my career and my life. So I would say receiving the love of the people in my life has made the intolerable tolerable.
Yeah. Okay, so I have a question, because in this day and age, and you were, I think, a groundbreaker as having a serious career back in the day where there were mostly suits in the room.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And it was between caring for kids and a spouse and your career. I find that the thing that falls to the wayside is community. So, the gang of girlfriends that you've collected.
Right.
So a practical question, how did you collect them?
Well, I think when I went through when I went through a divorce, I had a 2-year-old and a 7-year-old, and I realized if I was going to have any kind of a social life or any kind of a support group, I was going to have to bring people into my life. I wasn't going to be going to bars, and I wasn't going to be going to single clubs, and I'm not a person who particularly likes to join organizations or groups like that. So I kind of opened my home, and I would have people come to my house. And I think that between my colleagues at work and my girlfriends from college, many of whom are still in my life today, they kind of propped me up.
So you're someone with a spacious heart, I would say.
Well, I don't know, but I know that I needed the support.
Yeah.
A lot of people get it from their families.
Yeah.
But I was adopted by an older couple, so I never had grandparents or aunts or uncles, or it was really just a very small family of 3.
Right.
And my father died when I was 19. My mother died when I was 25. So my girlfriends, and I've got some very, very supportive, loving male friends who have kind of stepped in to be like big brothers for me, and that's made a world of difference.
Love is always such a nebulous term. I mean, sometimes, I don't know, it's the old philosopher in me. I just keep thinking, what is love? What is love? So I'm going to turn it around. What is love for you?
Well, I feel like I'm the recipient of support and love and encouragement from so many different sources. And I treasure my friendships, and believe me, they're all very different. I mean, if you put everybody in my life in a circle, you'd be amazed at the variation between a former alcoholic, a person who's been in prison, to a friend who's won 19 Emmy Awards. I mean, it's the whole gamut. So I can't really define one type of love, but I do feel surrounded with a lot of love.
You know what I love about your collection of friends is that everyone's bringing you something very different. It's like that old thing about you're blindfolded and you're feeling the elephant. But depending on where you're feeling it, it could be a completely different experience, right?
Exactly.
And love, I think love is like that. It can be completely different depending on who that other person is.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Mike. And it's like it's not that one is more important than the other. They're all essential, and I'm extremely grateful. Believe me, I would not be here if it weren't for the army of friends who have kept me propped up for years and years and years.
So I was surprised to learn that MS affects as many people as it does. Yes. And there's different statistics, but it could be up to 1 in 200, 300, 350 people are diagnosed every year with MS.
Yes.
What would you say to people who are newly diagnosed with MS or any other autoimmune disorder that's, going to be a long road?
The first thing I would do is advise them to really clean up their diet, because one of my former neurologists, who's now retired, his father was a neurosurgeon who got Alzheimer's, and my doctor said that his whole life everything had been the brain, and within the last decade they realized it's the gut. So everything has to do with the microbiome in your body. So however you can clean up your diet as much as possible, that can only help.
And we're talking about eat organic, eat fresh, put away processed foods.
Processed foods, it's poison. It's one of the major New York Times food writers referred to it as food-like substances, not really food, so that you're getting very few nutrients for a lot of calories and chemicals.
I love James Clear, you might know him, who wrote Atomic Habits, and he talks a lot about making tiny little changes, and so eventually you'll get somewhere, but it's not painful. And I find sugars like that. If I go all of a sudden down a little sugar kick, all of a sudden your body's craving the sugar, but then you're just cutting it back. It's amazing how your body gets used to the things that aren't good for it.
Yeah. And not only gets used to it, but wants more and more.
Yeah.
So it has an addictive component that can be damaging.
Right. Okay, so clean up your diet. So that's something physical you can do.
Right.
How about mental? What can we do mentally if we have this new diagnosis?
Well, for me, again, I just tried to have that stubborn optimism and realize, we don't know everything. Who knows what they'll discover tomorrow.
Right.
Or who knows what can happen that'll make your life a little bit better.
Right.
So
we've actually talked about what I think about as the core pillars of longevity. We've talked about, your body and how you can do better in your body, emotions, community.
Right.
What's your sleep like?
My what?
Sleep.
Oh, I don't get as much sleep as I would like. I would like to have more sleep. I read somewhere about how people who exist on like 4 hours of sleep at night, like Margaret Thatcher, I have a tendency to suffer from Alzheimer's or dementia. So that because the when you're asleep, the brain, that's when the brain is cleansing and repairing. So if your brain doesn't have an opportunity to cleanse and repair, that's not a good thing.
Yeah, that's not a good thing. Okay, a fun question.
Okay.
You're still fashionable. I mean, who can rock a bonnet like that? What was your favorite decade for fashion?
Well, I am kind of a child of the '80s. I enjoyed being in that group of not groundbreaking but almost groundbreaking females who it gave me enormous pleasure to have the title editor-in-chief. I love that type of thing. So when the MS took hold and I could no longer travel and no longer type and essentially lost my career, it was challenging for me to dispose of all of my working girl wardrobe.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that. So that I found a different wardrobe.
You did. I mean, I have to say, and my parents owned a nursing home, so I've seen a lot of people in hospital beds.
Right.
I've never seen anyone decked out in a hospital bed quite like you.
Well, I had when I broke my shoulder, it was a real challenge, and I had to have a couple of surgeries for bed sores, which was, believe me, extraordinarily unpleasant. But when I was moved into the hospital bed, they give you this cotton thing.
Johnny coat.
Right, and I remember saying to myself, if I'm going to die, I am not going to die in a cotton schmata that's been worn by so many other people, and I just thought that this is not going to happen. When I was at UCLA, and again, this is so ancient history, nobody even remembers, but Mademoiselle magazine back then had a college board, and I didn't win, but I was the UCLA Mademoiselle magazine college board competitor. So I've always cared deeply about clothes. One of the nicest things that ever happened to me in my life was when I was in, probably 5th grade, let's say. My family, which moved every 2 years, at that time we lived in Arizona, and Singer Sewing Machine Company had a promotion that if the mother bought a new Singer sewing machine, then automatically their daughter could be enrolled in a I don't know, maybe like an 8-week program. And every Saturday morning we would show up at the Singer thing, and this lovely lady, there were maybe, let's say there were, I don't know, 5 or 10 of us, would teach us something about clothing and sewing and whatever. And it was an eye-opening experience because I'd always gone to Catholic girls' schools and we only wore uniforms.
Yeah.
So it was heavenly to open up a whole world of fashion and beauty.
Okay, can we just talk about Singer sewing machines for a moment?
Yes.
I clearly remember in high school, which was the 70s, taking home ec. And I was so excited because I'd go to the sewing store and I'd look at the Vogue patterns. I'm no dope. I like fashion. And Buttermilk.
Yeah.
Right, Butterick. And I would get the pattern.
Yep.
I'd so carefully pick the fabric.
Right.
I'd go to class. It's like when you're baking a cake. Everything starts out good. You're cutting, you're following the lines. And then somewhere in the process, something goes awry and you don't know why, but you put the outfit on and it doesn't look like the cover.
Oh,
Did you have that experience, or did you just?
No, I was pretty, I mean, I really, the Catholic girls' school that I went to in high school, we had to wear green plaid, hip stitched pleated skirt with a white blouse and a green blazer.
Yeah.
And once a month, we had free dress day. And it was such a competition with the girls on what are you going to wear on free dress day. Well, my family didn't have a lot of money, but the Singer sewing machine lady had taught us that if you put your money on your shoes and your handbag, then you have money left over and you can sew whatever you want. And it was a great lesson for me, so that I learned that there's no way I could compete with the other girls who would go with their mom to Papagallo and buy whatever they wanted. I couldn't do that, but I could earn money babysitting, buy expensive shoes, and then make an outfit that I wanted to make. And it gave me great satisfaction.
Now, number one, I totally agree with you. Shoes and a handbag. Totally agree with that. But now I've learned something new about you. You actually used the patterns and made the outfits, and they were good enough to wear.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't have that experience, but I'm glad you did.
Not only did I do that, my first wedding gown was a Christian Dior that I made myself. And when my little boys were younger, and I was a struggling single mother, I could make 2 pairs of flannel pajamas for less than what 1 pair would have cost at JCPenney. So I mean,
that's a great story.
It was, so that was sewing and clothes and fashion and all that. That's a.
I always say I love fashion, but the minute you walk out the door, stop thinking about what you're wearing and just be in the moment.
That's good advice. That's very good advice. Yeah, and also, I've never been a believer in fashion or trends. I mean, people will laugh at me, but I'm a Talbots girl from beginning to end. And part of the reason I got into Talbots was my sons were 4 years, 9 months apart, and my parents had grown up, or they were adults when the Lindbergh baby was kidnapped, and they were conscious, always aware that something could happen. And one of the rules was to always know what your children are wearing, so that if the police come and they say, what was they're wearing, many times the parents are like, I don't remember. So I always dressed my boys matching, so it would be easier to remember what they were wearing. And it just became clothes. Talbot's was the only place where I could make that stretch from a 2-year-old to a 7-year-old and get the same colors and stuff. So.
Plus, they're a great classic.
Oh yeah.
That piece of advice I'd never heard, and it makes so much sense now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Huh.
It was helpful.
Okay, I'd like to, close up. First of all, I loved this book so much. I think I bought it right from you. Where can people buy these books or your other 6? On Amazon. Okay.
Right.
You're a big girl. You're right on Amazon.
I'm right on Amazon.
I'd love to ask you a few rapid fire questions.
Okay.
Best piece of advice you've ever received?
Probably from my father, who said you can always do something to make something better. You can't change everything. You can't, you're not going to alter world peace or whatever, but you can always do something so that at the end of the day you can say, I did that. And so that kind of keeps you with a little bit of forward momentum.
I love that. So each day is additive. Yeah. Best piece of advice you've ever given?
Ooh. Never stop looking for ways to be a better person, because there's always something you can do to make somebody else feel better. I learned a long time ago that when I would get really down or depressed or discouraged or in pain or whatever unpleasant thing was going on, the best escape route was to do something for somebody else, whether it was just sending them a note or remembering their birthday or thinking of what they would like for Christmas, or just taking yourself out of your own whatever and reaching out to help somebody else, because you never know, they might really need your help. Your little tiny act of whatever could change their whole day or their week.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
Favorite piece of clothing that you've ever owned?
Well, I very much loved my wedding gown from my third wedding.
For you, how do you define the purpose of your life, given all your different chapters?
I think, hold on. Thank you. This, by the way, is the remarkable and handsome Ramon. Ramon, venga y dice hola a la gente, okay? This is Ramon, who's made my life wonderful.
Hello.
Thank you for taking
my
care
work
of her.
every day for Marilyn, my living in the house. It's okay, Marilyn. It's happy, necessary every day. Yeah, the house, ready for Christmas. Yeah, the Christmas, maybe come back in next week.
You've done an incredible job.
Yeah,
Thank
exactly. Thank you so much.
And thank you for taking such
Yes,
care
okay.
of her.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
All right, I'm not letting you get off the hook, and I know you don't want to be.
Okay, what was the question again?
What is the purpose of your life for you?
I think the purpose of my life is to tell people that no matter how grim things are, that it can always be worse. I remember at times thinking, my career is over, my body's in pain, I can't do the things that I used to love to do, but I can read, or I can watch TV, or I can talk to Robin. I can do, again, like my father said, I can do something to make something better.
Yeah.
Not major, but if you just start doing little things.
I have a sense that you've added a lot to a lot of people. I think your father would be proud.
Thank you. That's lovely. That's all I ever wanted.
Thanks so much for talking to me today.
Thank you. My pleasure.
All right, you are the queen of honey.
Wow.
So I brought you honey from my farm that I was so proud of, because I heard that the land is very organic, blah, blah, blah. And this is the honey from your bees. Very different in color.
Yes.
What would you say about this?
Well, I was taught that the darker the color, the higher the mineral content. And the reason that's important is that your body cannot process vitamins adequately if the mineral level isn't of a certain height. So minerals are important. So,
Okay. All right.
And bees don't recognize color the way we do, but the color that they particularly like is purple. And my whole front yard has very small little purple flowers that the bees really like. You can see the beehives in the backyard.
Yeah, we'll take some photos of that. Okay, I didn't finish my rapid fire. If you were going to be a bee in the hive, who would you be?
Well, a bee's lifespan is 45 days. And miraculously, during those 45 days, they acquire, I would say, 20 different jobs. How this happens, I honestly have no idea, but they are born knowing that their job description changes all the time. So I would be a worker bee who never got bored, because every other day there's a new job to do.
So I didn't know that bees are very flexible. They're not getting us
if you look at the honeybee, what the honeybees taught me, look at the chapter that's called Work, 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 and it tells you what day in the bee's lifespan they're doing which job.
Which is just they're programmed to the nth degree.
Yeah.
And they don't get stubborn and say, I like this job, I don't want to change.
No, they don't do that. No, they don't. And when you see bees flying around, those are geriatric bees, because the other bees, their wings are not strong enough for them to go out and about and search for nectar. So the bees that are flying around don't have very much longer to live.
Got it.
So,
what's the biggest secret that the bees have taught you?
well, I love the fact that that in every hive there are about 60,000 bees, one queen, and the queen, an average bee lives 45 days. A queen will live 6 years. And part of the reason is that the only thing the queen ever eats is royal jelly, which is manufactured by the youngest larvae that as they're maturing. So unfortunately, a lot of people think that they can just buy royal jelly and open up the jar and take some, but it oxidizes very, very fast. So if you're going to get royal jelly, you really want it to be freeze dried. And people don't really realize that, and it makes me sad when I see how much money people spend on royal jelly, knowing that every time they open the lid to take a spoonful, it becomes less useful.
That's interesting, but what else is interesting is it goes back to your whole comment about nutrition. So she has a uber nutritious diet.
Exactly. You hit the nail on the head. Yeah.
Okay, so you have interviewed so many celebrities and famous people, from Paul McCartney to Jane Seymour to everyone's sweetheart, Audrey Hepburn.
Yes.
What was amazing about the interview? And can you tell us something that nobody knows about Audrey that you found out in your interview?
Yes. Okay. Okay, so I interviewed Audrey Hepburn, and in the midst of our time together at the Savoy Hotel in London, I needed to use the bathroom. So I go into the bathroom, and the counter is overflowing with beauty products. And I was surprised at that. So when I went back out, I said, "What could you tell?" This was for Marie Claire magazine. I said, "What could you tell my readers about your beauty routine?" I couldn't help but notice the products in the bathroom. And she starts telling me everything that's wrong with her. Now, I worshiped Audrey Hepburn from my teenage days, and I always thought she was the most elegant, glamorous, fabulous person on the planet. And to sit there and have her, by the way, she was wearing black, what they call court pumps in England, meaning that the heels and the toes are closed, black shoes and a black skirt and a red sweater, and she drank scotch during the whole interview.
I did not see that coming.
And she's telling me everything that's wrong with her, that her feet are too big, she doesn't like her nose, she just went, she didn't like her hair. I mean, she's going on and on and on, and I'm speechless, because I'm looking at this exquisite woman and realizing that she has the same insecurities that we all do, that, in her mind, she only wishes that her feet were smaller, or she only wishes, that her hair were thicker. So that I found that very, very interesting.
I'm so surprised to hear that. And immediately in my mind it goes to, because she wasn't even dealing with social media and all the expectations. But what goes to my mind is the importance and the gift when you have a positive image and self-esteem.
Right. Well, I think that, one of the most important lessons I think I learned in life is going back to my Catholic schoolgirl days. I went to a school where there were three groups you could fall into. You could be really beautiful, you could be really rich, or you could be smart. I wasn't beautiful and I wasn't rich, but I figured I can be smart. I can use my brain. And I think investing in improving yourself internally always pays great dividends.
I am 100%. It's all about the inside. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh,
This
my
has been
pleasure.
great.
This is
You're
so much
treasure
fun.
to so many people.
Oh, this is
You're
so much
treasure to
fun.
me.
Thank you. I need that. Yeah.